I'm really not sure how to start this one. Um, Obviously, hello, but yeah, this one's a bit tough for me. This one's a bit personal. I was thinking twice about whether I wanted to talk about this, but I'm going to anyway. So I've just finished reading a book called um, "Never Stop Walking" by Christina Rickardsson. She is she's a lady who was born in Brazil. She was adopted to a Swedish family when she was 7, I think it was, with her baby brother. And she grew up in Sweden. She then went back to Brazil. She found a mum. She went through a lot. She um, she had a lot to deal with mentally. She's obviously a very strong woman. Um, Her story is different to mine. Her story is different to mine. I didn't go what she went through in the first 7 years. I was shipped to the UK as a baby. So, um, yeah, I think she's a year older than me, but we're pretty much, or maybe a couple of years older than me, I think. But no, I want to say 1 year. She's 83. I'm 84. I think. Anyway, um, yeah, there's a certain. It sounds really strange, but there's a certain part of the book I was really looking forward to getting to, which is obviously about if she met her mum again, and bit of a spoiler, but she does. She goes back and she meets her mum again, and it's a very uh, difficult thing for me to read because she'd already had a relationship with her mum, and it was a very different circumstance. But trying to imagine walking, arranging a meeting with my birth mother, walking down the road, um, and she's there in front of me with other members of my family. I don't know how I'd cope with that. I don't know. I really don't know what to think. To be honest, it was when I read it, it was really tough for me trying to imagine meeting a woman that I've thought about my entire life, who shaped me more than anything in my life, and I can't even remember the woman. But the fact that there's this biological tie that has had a grip on me my whole life, a vice like grip, and I've always felt like I wasn't good enough. Obviously, it sounds ridiculous, and if someone else said it to me about their situation, I'd be like, don't be stupid. But to me, there's this subconscious thing of I wasn't good enough, because if I was good enough, she would have done what she needed to do to keep me, which is a ridiculous thing to say, but it haunted my childhood. Um, so yeah, that not feeling of good enough. But the other thing is the fear of rejection again. Um, so I think I was always worried about if I ever got the opportunity to meet her, and if she didn't want me, I didn't know if I could cope with that. I mean, being given away once, fine, but rejected a second time, be tough. It'd be really tough. So I kind of waited until I knew I wasn't ready years ago, and I kind of feel like I'm getting towards that stage where I feel like, do you know what? I think I could take that risk now. Um, she's never going to be what I imagined. No one could live up to this vision of like basically an angel, perfect angel, no one could live up to that. That worries me a little bit. That if I meet her and she can't live up to this pedestal, imaginary being, this thing. She won't be able to live up to it, so that worries me. Anyway, that reading that book was tough. It was really tough. There were a couple of times when it was too real for me. The feelings. There were a lot of things that she wrote in there, and I thought, wow, it's not. There's not many other people who can relate. I mean, there are a lot of people who were taken out of their own culture, adopted into a different culture, and it affects everyone differently. Yes, it's. I really, really would love to interview Christina Rickardsson one day, if that's possible. I'm sure it will be one day. I'm gonna interview her. I wanna. In some ways, we have got. I mean, I don't know the woman, but there's something. Obviously, we've been through something similar, and it would be interesting to speak to someone who to see if the things I have developed, the traits I've developed are because of the way I am, or if it's something that is a combination of, let's call it, feral Brazilian genetics combined with a situation. I think genetics plays a part, but it does traumatize you in a way that it. How can I put this? Growing up, I knew I was very gifted. I was always the best, pretty much at everything. So I had very high confidence, but very low self-worth. I knew I was worth less than everyone else I knew. I knew I couldn't understand why anyone would ever want me, why anyone would ever love me. And the only thing that changed that was when I got a girlfriend when I was 17, and she changed my whole perception of the fact that someone could actually care about me. But which is kind of stupid because my adopted parents were tried really, really, really hard. But it's complicated. But anyway, it does make you. It gave me no self-worth, which kind of automatically made me selfless and fearless. And because of my confidence, and the gifts that I have always possessed, I felt like I automatically moved into this role of shepherd, and even as a young child, I automatically became very protective of all my peers, anyone and everyone. I was very protective, and because I felt it was kind of my responsibility. I can do something about it, therefore I should. If I have the tools, the capability to change something that doesn't put myself at risk, I'm thinking big picture. If I go and jump in the way of a bullet for a stranger, I'm not going to be able to help more people. So it's about how many people can I help, long term, big picture sort of thing. So I will always do whatever I can, and that is the strange thing is it's very ingrained in me. I don't think I want to be protective. I don't think like that. I get, you know, when people say that they have something that winds them up. You know, I'll go, oh, what really bugs me is when people leave the toilet seat up, or stupid things like this. You can't control the things that just trigger you, and one of the things that triggers me is people bullying others. And I was told by a psychologist years ago that it's something to do with it's a result of being adopted and your brain wanting to fight against injustice because you feel that that is how you feel your life is, just one big injustice, the fact that you were given away and other people weren't. So anyway, you end up weirdly developing these traits of a leader, specific, not completely, you know, not everything, but there are certain things that are leadership traits. They are the protectiveness, they are the selflessness, putting your team before yourself, and then just luckily for me, I got confidence as well, and I ended up with this kind of no fear. I didn't care if when I was younger, I didn't care if I lived, I died, I didn't care if I got hurt. It was, you know, if I was in pain, it was good. It stopped me thinking about how angry and upset and alone I was. So pain was a good thing. That's why as a child, I used to self-harm as a child. I used to cut myself. And when people talk about it and they go, it's a stupid thing to do, I get it. I stopped. I mean, I don't know how many times I did it. I used to cut like all the way around my arm and things like that, and carve stuff in my arm, and but write words. You know, like other people do like lines and stuff. No, mine was. I would write stuff and try and draw pictures, and it was a distraction. So I get it. I do get it. But yeah, I think I very quickly, I didn't do that for maybe a couple of years. I did that, and then I very quickly transferred that into, I would think to myself, this is stupid. I want to hurt myself, but let's be productive about it. So I used to go training. I would go and hurt myself in the gym. I would go and box against people that were bigger than me. I would go running and run till I was sick, and I would just try and make it productive. And that was part of the reason as well why I just because of all the different thoughts and problems and things like that, I never went to sleep. I was afraid of going to bed because that's when I would think the most. And then I never went to bed. I would stay up all night, and I would only go to sleep when I was exhausted. So I would just leave my house even at 10, 11, 12 years old. I would get on my bike, just ride. I would ride till 6 in the morning. My parents, when I was younger, they used to always call the police and say he's gone missing again, and I would just ride off. I just turn up like 6, 7 in the morning, go home, go to bed. Never went to school really. I had I used to push everyone away because it was the safest place as well. So I was very alone, which gave me a great independence. And what that also gave me was I didn't need to belong. I had no interest in belonging. So peer pressure I never understood. So I was never one for being pressured into doing something I didn't want to do, which again is another thing I developed that was part of being a good leader, was having your own mind and not being swayed by other people. That when I see a lot of studies say that, you know, humans are social species. Not all. I am very happy on my own. I do like talking to people. I love conversation. I love stimulating conversation. But I could be on my own. I'm content to be on my own. I've always had this vision of living up in the woods, in the Rockies, just in a log cabin, hunt for my food, just on my own. I've got no issue with that. But I also feel I've got a responsibility with the gifts I've got. I shouldn't just leave. I owe all the other orphans in Brazil who weren't adopted. I think there was something like 12 million kids on the street in Brazil when I was born in mid-80s, 84. And I used to have people like the police, different organisations would get called up by the rich people. And this is in the book as well. This happened to one of Christina's friends. They used to go around the streets. They would find kids. And the rich people would say that kids are messing about on our bins. Police would turn up. They'd round up a load of kids. They'd just shoot them in the head. Bury them. Ditch them. Well, the kids were seen as rats. And I feel that, I know times have changed. It's not as bad as it used to be, but there's still a lot of children in Brazil that I believe I can help, and I want to help. I want to do that through making enough money to be able to go over there, set up a foundation one day, give those orphans an education. So when I moved back to Brazil, I went to an orphanage and I met some of the boys. So basically, they said the younger kids, everyone wants to adopt the younger kids. Then you've got girls are generally looked after a bit more, but you've got the boys between 12 and 18. No one wants them. No one ever wants them. And I went and met a group of these boys in an orphanage, and this was 2012. And I've never felt so guilty in all my life. The fact that it was just pure luck that I ended up in the UK, and I think the amount of other kids that died, the horrible things that would have happened to them, and I just felt like I owed a penance. I owe kind of a life debt to all of them, and if I can help 100 kids not go down the wrong path, and then they can help 100, and they can help 100 more, and the pyramid goes on. I feel like that's what I want to do. That's what I need to do. I feel like I've got a duty and a responsibility to do that. I've been given the opportunity. I've been given the gifts. I now need to do something about it, and that's one of the many things I'm planning to do. Like I said, I want to set up that foundation in Brazil. One day I want to go and meet. I want to try and find my family. I've got a family of my own now, so I'm married. I've got 2 children, and my little boy is 2 on Thursday. My daughter was 5 on Boxing Day, and I really want them to know, to appreciate how lucky they are. So I want them to go to Brazil. I want them to see these things, and I would love for them to have family members in Brazil. They've got my wife, so my wife's family is English, so they've got that, and I want them to have that Brazilian side as well, because I'm not really that close to anyone in the UK in the family I was adopted into, not really. So not in location or I mean, we sometimes we talk and stuff, but we're not like close, and I feel for my daughter, because I'm pretty sure my boy will be alright. He'll be alright. Boys generally are. I mean, it's complete contradiction after everything I've just said, but I wasn't. I was, but clearly not. I want her to be able to have those maternal relationships, and I'd love to be able to meet my real mum. But do you know what's crazy? Is when I had my daughter, I had this weird thing about, I really want to meet my dad now, because I think I could have more of for me personally, I could have more of a friend relationship, and it wouldn't be so intense. I think it would be possibly quite enjoyable, but I think finding my mum would be incredibly intense. I think it would be difficult. There would be too much. It would be too much, I think. I don't know. I don't know. I've got a feeling as well that my dad doesn't even know I exist. The story goes, it's quite complicated, but I went and met, when I was in Brazil in 2012, 2013, I met someone who explained a little bit to me. It was just complete coincidence. I'll explain the story another time, but yeah, complete coincidence. And I met someone who explained to me that my birth mum was sent away from the family home to, 8 hours away, to go and have me, and then she was allowed back home. So I think, because it's very Catholic and things like that, so I think it was to have a baby in secrecy, in private, and then she can go back and then they can, hide the fact that she's ever had a baby, because it would have brought shame on the family. So I think my dad probably doesn't even know I exist, which is freaky. The thought of if I was 50, 60 and someone just came knocking on my door and they were... from what I'm told, I think my mum was about 17 years old. So say my dad was... Let's just say he was similar age, maybe a little bit older. I'm 40 this year. So let's just say he was 60. You imagine being a 60-year-old man and you'd had a child that you didn't know about when you were, let's say, 19. And for 40 years you've not known about that child, and they come knocking on your door and just say, hi. I don't know how I would feel. Guilt? I don't know. Anyway, back to the reason I brought this up. I read the book and it got me thinking about, obviously, I do a lot on leadership. I love studying leadership, and I think that, where I've said before, I think personality is a very, very important thing in terms of leadership. That's kind of a part around my story as to why I think I'm personally a good leader. It's not about... I've got technical knowledge in some stuff, but I think it's more about the protective instinct, the selflessness, putting your team first. I've got a lot of good leadership traits. A lot of people they wouldn't think it though, because I'm not 6'8" with a big beard, really dominating. I'm not that alpha, but I don't care. I'll look after you, whoever you are. It's just part of who I am, and I think it's not just people who are adopted. I've known people who are people who go through foster care, people who have had traumatic childhoods. I think it sends you on dark paths. And I read a quote today that was something about someone will tell me what it is or who said it. It was someone, not Picasso, someone like that, and they said for someone to reach heaven, they have to equal it out. They have to have been to hell or something. I can't remember. I butchered that. I'll have to look it up. Anyway, it was something about you have to go to the depths of hell to be able to reach the heights of heaven. Something like that. And I just thought to myself that, yeah, I mean, I've heard who was... I swear it was Joe Rogan as well, said that everyone he's met who's has that something about them, they've all had a bit of a fucked up childhood, and you don't want that for your own kids, but I do think it builds something within you, a fire. It makes you or breaks you. I know a lot of people who were broken by their childhoods, and I know a few that were made by their childhoods. But anyway, I just think that it's an amazing book. That book by Christina Rickardsson, Never Stop Walking. It's definitely worth a read. There's some dark stuff in there. For me, it was difficult. I think if you're someone who's adopted from a country other than your own, you've got a different culture. You could feel some stuff from it that you didn't really realise other people felt, I suppose. So yeah, interesting. But I do think I'm probably gonna interview a few people, maybe some adoption experts. I'm gonna try and find some academics who know about adoption. There's one woman in particular in the United States who she studies children adopted outside of their own culture or outside of their own country, maybe. She's an expert in that, and I wouldn't mind speaking to her and just see what the difference is between children like that and children who are adopted within their own culture. See how much of an effect it makes. I know for me it was strange going back to Brazil and seeing how much of the way I behave is genetic. It is insane. I always used to say nature over nurture. No, sorry, nurture over nature. I always used to think genetics didn't really pay that, like, it didn't contribute that much towards your personality, but fuck me, I was wrong. Yeah, it's crazy how many people, either that. I was going to say it's crazy how many people I met in Brazil who were like me, but either that or everyone in Brazil has had a fucked up childhood. It could be that. And in the UK, people's childhoods aren't as messed up, so it could be that. But yeah, I do think some of those things I've mentioned about traits of leaders come from childhood trauma, and I've said it before, and I just thought I would go through some of my childhood trauma, not in depth, but just a little bit. And I think that having, like I said, that fire, that thing, I don't know, that grit, that lack of empathy for yourself means you can go through that much more. I've kind of got this weird ability where I can shut off my emotions as well. I go a little bit Ivan Drago from Rocky. I'm just like, gone, a switch. I think that's why a lot of first world adults struggle with anything that happens really to them, because I think they haven't been through anything emotionally as a child that broke them. So when they break as an adult, it's kind of like, I suppose, like getting chickenpox as an adult. If you have chickenpox as a child, it's mild. You get it as an adult, so they say it fucks you up. So I kind of feel it's a bit like that. I think if you go through trauma, a lot of trauma as a child, it kind of numbs you. It does fuck you up, but it gives you, in a way, superpowers. It does mess you up. And then I think the ones who have never really had that much of a traumatic life, they then, yeah, I think, yeah, you know, going through stuff does affect a lot of people. But I think if you've grown up in a really nice environment, growing up as a child in Sudan, you're going to see a lot of shit. So when you become an adult, you're going to be quite immune to it. Whereas if you grow up in United States and you've got a decent life, and then you go to war in somewhere like that and you see that shit, I think it mess you up. Seeing your friends get shot and killed, and because they haven't got that switch, they can't. Their emotions aren't. They're not able to turn them off. Their emotions are always there. I think you need that robotic. You need to be able to switch those emotions on and off. I think you need to be able to have emotions. You can't be completely numb. But I think at times as a leader, you need to stay composed. You need to think logically about, the mission or your team. You need to think logically, and not let emotion take over. So anyway, Just wanted to cover that today. I will talk about. I do really want to talk about adoption a lot more. I think it'd be worth. I'd really like to talk to some different people about how having mental health issues as a child could potentially make it easier as an adult. I wouldn't mind speaking to someone about that as well, because I feel like I went through so much as a child. It sounds a bit stupid. Sorry, it sounds a bit stupid, but I kind of feel like I'm a bit immune to depression. People talk about depression and anxiety, and I can't comprehend it. I think I remember I failed my first ever personal training test when I was 17 due to lack of assertiveness. And if you spoke to anyone now, they'd be like, "What? Lack of assertiveness?" I was a completely different person. And I think, yeah, I would love to speak to someone about that. How having those mental health things as a child, how mental health issues as a child can make you stronger as an adult. I don't know if that's a thing. I don't know if that's me or um, if that's a general thing that happens to people when they have things as a child, or am I an exception for some reason, and for most people, if they have things go wrong as a child, it really, really just fucks them up as adults even more. I don't know. So yeah, I would love to speak to someone about that. I mean, the whole thing, I want to study leadership in my PhD, the kind of philosophies of leadership. I want to figure all those out. But yeah, there's a lot of things I wouldn't mind going deep into to be able to work my way back up and hopefully figure that out. So some mental health issues, some adoption issues. Yeah, I'm going to try and find some people to talk to. And I'd love to speak to that Christina as well, just to... I don't know. I don't even know what the fuck I'd ask her. It's kind of like quite a... I don't want to say personal or intense. I don't know what I'd call it. Be a difficult conversation, weirdly. So yeah, anyway, I'll leave you with that, and I'll see you again soon. Thank you.